For 8 hours, I held onto a single palm tree as the water rushed around me, my body broken. But the sound that haunts me more than the roaring water was the screaming that slowly faded away. How do you find the strength to survive when everything and everyone you love has been washed away? Welcome to Learn English with my story. Today, you'll hear an incredible true story of survival told by the person who lived it. As you listen, we'll learn some powerful English words and phrases that will help you share your own stories with confidence. It was December 26, 2004. My partner, Simon, and I were in Khao Lak, Thailand, enjoying a perfect holiday. Our bungalow was right on the beach. That morning, I remember looking out at the beautiful, calm ocean. We were so happy, completely unaware of what was coming. Unaware just means you don't know about something that is happening or will happen. For example, he was unaware of the surprise party. We were packing our things, getting ready for another day in paradise. Suddenly, we heard screaming outside. It was strange, confused. We looked at each other, but we had no idea what was happening. We went to the window, and what I saw didn't make any sense. The ocean was just gone. The water had pulled back very far from the shore. And then we saw it. A huge, dark wall of water on the horizon, moving towards us incredibly fast. There was no time to think, no time to run. The water hit our bungalow with a force you cannot imagine. It felt like a building collapsing on top of us. The walls disappeared, and we were instantly swept away. This is a common phrasal verb, to be swept away. It means to be carried away by a strong force like water or wind. For example, the flood water swept away cars and trees. I was underwater, tumbling and turning, hitting things. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know which way was up. Everything was just chaos and noise. When I finally came to the surface, I gasped for air. Simon was there near me. We managed to grab onto the roof of our bungalow, which was now just floating wreckage. We held onto it and held onto each other. But then a second wave came, even bigger than the first. This wave was different. It was full of debris. Debris is a useful word. It means the pieces of something that has been destroyed. For example, after the storm, the streets were full of debris. This wave was a monster of water, wood, metal, and glass. It ripped us apart. I was pulled under again, and that was the last time I saw Simon. The force of the water was unbelievable. I felt a sudden, blinding pain in my hip, a feeling of something breaking inside me. I was sure I was going to die. I was just waiting for it to be over. But then my body hit something hard. It was a palm tree. Without thinking, I just wrapped my arms and legs around it. I didn't have a plan. It was pure instinct. I just knew I had to hold on. The phrasal verb hold on means to grip something tightly, to not let go. For example, hold on to the rope, don't look down. And that's what I did. For 8 hours, I clung to that tree. The water was still high, rushing past me. I could hear the screams of other people, people in the water, people on roofs. At first, there were many voices. But as the hours passed, the voices became fewer, and then there was only silence. That was the hardest part, hearing people call for help and being completely helpless. Helpless is an adjective we use when you are unable to help yourself or anyone else. For example, the small boat was helpless against the giant waves. I couldn't move. My pelvis was shattered, broken in 4 places, though I didn't know that at the time. I only knew the pain was excruciating. Excruciating is a strong word for extreme pain. It's more powerful than very painful. For example, I had an excruciating toothache and couldn't sleep. The sun was beating down on me. I was in and out of consciousness, dizzy from the pain and the heat. I remember thinking about Simon, hoping he had found another tree, hoping he was okay. But a part of me knew he was gone. I had to come to terms with that possibility, even as I was fighting for my own life. To come to terms with something means to gradually accept a difficult or sad situation. For example, it took him a long time to come to terms with his father's death. At one point, I saw a man in the distance, also holding onto something. We saw each other, but we couldn't speak. We were too far apart. Just seeing another person, another survivor, gave me a small bit of strength to continue. It was a silent connection that said, "You are not alone." I started to feel my body giving up. My arms were weak, my legs were numb. It felt impossible to keep my grip. I remember telling myself, just a little longer, just one more minute. I had to pull myself together. This expression, pull yourself together, means to take control of your emotions and behave calmly after being upset. For example, after crying, she pulled herself together and finished the presentation. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, the water started to go down. It was slow, but it was happening. Eventually, the water was low enough that I could see the ground below me. The beautiful beach I knew was gone. It was just mud and destruction everywhere. Everything was destroyed. I was still stuck in the tree, unable to move because of my injuries. I stayed there in agony for another 2 hours. I yelled for help until my throat was raw, but nobody came. I started to lose hope. To lose hope is a common collocation. It means to stop believing that something good will happen. For example, even when the team was losing, the fans did not lose hope. Just as I was about to give up, I heard a voice. A Thai man had found me. He had been looking for his family. He and another man gently helped me down from the tree. The relief was so intense, I can't even describe it. But the journey was far from over. They carried me through the wreckage, trying to find a safe place. There were no hospitals left standing nearby. We ended up at a makeshift hospital in a school. It was chaotic. People were everywhere, injured, crying, looking for their loved ones. I was there for a long time before I was finally taken to a real hospital. The doctors looked at my injuries and told me I was lucky to be alive. They also told me that with a shattered pelvis, I might never walk again. It was a devastating piece of news. Devastating means causing a lot of shock, sadness, or damage. For example, the fire had a devastating effect on the small town. In the hospital, I finally learned what had happened. It was a tsunami, one of the biggest in history. Hundreds of thousands of people had lost their lives, and after many days of waiting and searching, it was confirmed that Simon was among them. He did not survive. Lying in that hospital bed, I had 2 choices. I could let this tragedy destroy my life, or I could try to find some meaning in it. I thought about the children I had seen, children who had lost their parents and their homes. I knew I couldn't just go back to my old life. I had to do something. Do something is a simple but powerful phrase. It means to take action to solve a problem or improve a situation. For example, when he saw the injustice, he knew he had to do something. My own recovery was long and difficult. There were many surgeries and months of physical therapy. But that thought, that promise to myself kept me going. I had been given a second chance and I wasn't going to waste it. I had a new purpose. A few months after I was able to walk again, I went back to Thailand. It was difficult, but I needed to see it. I wanted to help. I saw so many children whose schools had been destroyed. They had survived, but their future was uncertain without an education. That's when I knew what I had to do. I decided to start a charity. Its goal was to rebuild schools in communities affected by natural disasters. We called it the Happy Hearts Fund. It was my way of honoring Simon and everyone who was lost. It was my way of turning something terrible into something good. It wasn't easy to set up a charity. Set up is a phrasal verb that means to start a business, organization, or institution. For example, she set up a small company that sells handmade jewelry. But we did it. We started with one school, then another. The feeling of seeing children walk into a new, safe classroom for the first time was incredible. It gave my life a meaning that it never had before. I had survived for a reason. My life was changed forever on that day. I lost the love of my life, and I carry the physical and emotional scars with me. But I also found a new path. I learned that even after the most terrible storm, you can rebuild. You can find light in the darkest of places. Nature can be incredibly destructive, but the human spirit can be incredibly resilient. And finally, resilient. This word describes the ability to become strong, happy, or successful again after something difficult happens. For example, children are often very resilient and adapt quickly to new situations. I survived by holding onto a tree. But I truly began to live again when I learned to let go of my anger and pain and hold onto a new purpose, helping others. The story of Petra Nemcova shows us the incredible strength of the human will to survive, and how helping others can be the best way to heal ourselves. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more fascinating true stories to improve your English, make sure you subscribe to our channel. By joining our community, you won't miss our next episode, where we explore real events that are not only exciting, but also full of useful English. Thank you for listening.